right, I'm bootlegging Ash's channel here. He's just come into the shop, so I've grabbed him. We're going to get into his mind a little bit more. You know, we can see what he's been trying to do and what he's trying to explain. But I've been lucky enough to fish with Ash quite a few times. Never catches anything big when I'm around. But, yeah, he does seem to catch a lot of fish. And it's very interesting to try and understand what the things he does. And it's difficult to explain sometimes, Ash, isn't it? And I don't know what you do half the time, but you still manage to do something that is different to everybody else. With pretty much the same products all the products that are available to everyone. So what have you nicked today, mate?
So, well, I was trying to keep this down to like just trying to go through maybe 5 or 6 different lures, but it is impossible really, because there is something for everything and everyone, whatever they're trying to go out and catch. So I think to start off with, if you are new to lure fishing, and I think it's vital that the first thing you do is to try to build confidence in getting bites on artificial lures. And the Gunki Rockstars, the new ones, the 4.5 centimetre, they will catch everything from 1 ounce perch. You'll catch rudd on them, roach, skimmers, huge pike. I would always start with, if you just want to go out and you want to have fun, these, specifically these 2 colours, you've got UVIU, clear water, they're brilliant. You've got these ones, the UFO, the chartreuse coloured ones, if you're fishing the canals where the fish are averaging a smaller size. I mean, we've had some sessions recently on the canals where these have smashed it. But
so we've called these, not to jump in, Ash, but we've called these the baby rock stars, because when we first had them, a lot of you will know I'm a very big Gunki fan. I use a lot of Gunki products myself, and you were lucky to get hold of these before they were actually released.
I was.
So we nicknamed them the baby rock stars, and it's sort of like stuck really. But they are available in bigger sizes, which is great. But exactly what Ash just said there, they will catch anything.
They will. If, like I say, if you even me and that, I spend a lot of time trying to catch the bigger fish. Sometimes when it's not going your way, you need that reset, and just going out with these on ultralight gear just to get some bites and just have a bit of fun. I still do that today, and I'll be doing that in the coming season as well. You know,
when you're saying ultralight, how light are you going? You know that. You know, I see you've got some small hooks there.
So these here, especially, I mean, these will work in all conditions. These are the G-foot jig heads from Gunki. These are 1.8 gram, but these, because they've got quite a wide profile to the actual jig head itself, if you're fishing over a stony bottom or a rocky area, these are great for that, because they're wider, they don't get lodged quite so much behind the rocks, you snag less of them.
So they've got like a football style
it's a football style jig head,
which basically slows the lure down, adds a little bit more resistance. Not like, do you know, like the fish head ones, the G slide ones. Yeah. I've seen you use a lot of them, and they will make the lure point and move a lot faster. And what are you finding these flatter side is
I find down with the G slides, I will use them with something like the Gunki Whiz. I think we spoke about it before. I'll literally cut the head off the Whiz because of the shape of that jig head. It's pointy, it's got eyes on it. It's great again in the summer because you can fish them quite aggressively. They dart from left to right. Really good for something like the Gunki Whiz. But I find with these little rock stars, I find the G-foot, these are the ones we was using on the canal. Size of the hook on them is a size 6. It makes a really nice, neat package. And the one thing I will say about the UFO colour, something that I will touch on in a minute as well on some of the other baits, I don't know what it is, but crystal clear water in low light with chartreuse seems, in my experience, outfishes everything else. Now, it took me a long time to sort of get onto that, because I'm definitely someone who's more keen on natural style, natural pattern baits, natural colours. But chartreuse and black, chartreuse and blue in low light, but in crystal clear water, first hour of light, last hour of light, it just seems to outfish everything, especially on crankbaits.
Well, I'm just going to get one of these out, because I know you've chopped your hand off recently at work, but you are a massive fan of the IU colour, and you know, and this is a. I'm just going to try and get one of these out. They are extremely small. They are oily. They are infused with aniseed, and it's really hard to sort of see. But what they have is something called a sugar coated belly, or an SCL, SCB, I think it is, yeah, which basically means they've got sort of like a ribbed effect on the belly, but there is a hook vein in the belly, and there is a lovely hook vein on the top, so it does lend itself to be fished weedless, but you prefer exposed hook.
Even though when you're looking at it yourself, when you're testing them out in the margins or something, the action will look the same. But we was out recently and I was fishing these on the jig heads. I was catching small fish. I switched over to a really light 2 gram cheb rig, and you will get a slightly different action, because when you're fishing on a jig head, the weight is coming out the top of the bait, so you're going to get a bit more roll. When you're fishing it weedless on something like a cheb weight, the weight is coming out the bottom, so the body's going to be a little bit more stable, but you're going to get the same movement out the tail. So even though that might sound unbelievably unimportant, because you're talking about a tiny little bit of difference in movement, that made an instant difference. We had fished a 2 pound as soon as we switched over from the jig heads to the cheb rig. So just worth bearing in mind, them tiny little changes can make a huge difference.
And that's, I'm going to say this, that's what you do very well. Those little tiny, like 1% things make a massive difference. You know, it's, you know, I can see this lure now, and I've been lucky enough to use this lure, and many of you have out there. You know, the rolling action of this tiny little, you know, 4.5 centimetre lure is unbelievable. You know, for the amount of water it's actually moving around.
100%.
You know, so yeah, I can see why you use it.
I think two more things to mention about these baits is because it's got the sugar belly concept, the ribbed belly. Anything that's got ribs on the soft plastics holds scent really well, and I'm a massive fan of the Ilex gels, and it just, these stay on lures for ages, but anything with the ribbed belly, it just seems to stay on that a little bit longer. So if I do find that I'm in a situation where scent is going to benefit me, I will always try to use it on a bait that's got a ribbed belly or some kind of ribs along the flank of the bait, whatever it may be. But,
so when you put that on, are you saying that lasts 1-2 casts,
no,
or is it lasting 10-20
you
casts?
can use literally 10-15 minutes of fishing, and you can still smell the well, depending on what. This is the garlic one, but there's several that Ilex do, so it's personal preference what you find works best on your venues. But this will last for quite some time.
So I'm going to get a secret out of Ash. This garlic is your go-to. Is your go-to flavour, right? So I'll get a secret out of you.
I don't tend to use any other scent other than garlic.
Right.
I do think it makes a difference. There are times where I've been getting bites, it's died off. I put that on, and then it's, I'm not going to say instant because it's an exaggeration, but it has then started to bring the fish back on. The way I look at scent is, it's not going to put fish off. So if you've got a fish, let's say for argument's sake we're retrieving this and there's a 4 pounder following it in, that scent might be
maybe a pound, for me. 4 pound for you, right? Pound for me.
No, but it's if that's just going to give you that 1 or 2% extra chance that fish is going to commit, then I am a massive fan of scent.
I've used that, and I am a firm believer of it does work, but it does work on its day. It doesn't, as you said, it doesn't work all the time. But with a lot of lures, and especially the Gunki lures, these are infused with aniseed. So you know, the first thing I do is I do lick a bait and taste it and stuff like that. They're not salty; they're aniseed, and they have got an oil base over them. And this, you know, I do like to keep my lures in a packet, and I do like to put scent in a packet and stuff like that, so they have a scent to them already. But if you are fishing with the same lure for a period of time, half an hour, 2 hours, or day or whatever, adding a little bit extra can make a difference. And and I have seen it. You put it on. You haven't used it all day. You put it on, and it's been instant. You know,
I think the way to look at scent is it's either going to make a difference in a positive way or no difference at all. So in looking at it from that kind of logic, I've always got scent with me. Again, I might not use it right from the start of the session, but once you feel your way into it, you will then make, you know, I'll put some on and then bang, straight, you know, you might get a fish within a few casts. I'm you know, a confident angler is a better angler, and
Yeah.
I'm more confident with using scent than not using it.
And confidence is the key in
100%,
fishing. You know, doesn't matter what
100%.
kind of fishing you're doing. If you're confident in something,
Exactly.
it makes a difference. Yeah.
And I think just to finish off with the rock stars, if you are an angler that's either just starting out or on a budget, these are £4 for a pack, which is really, really good value for money as well.
$3.99, and you're getting 8 lures in
Exactly.
there. That's,
So yeah,
that's a lot of lures.
That is for what you can spend on soft plastic baits.
And these are
really good.
I think these are 350, 375.
I think they are. Yeah, they're under £4.
Yeah, so you are getting, you know, under £8, a really good, you know, perch, pike, zander, anything catching.
Yeah,
lure,
the fact that you can go into a tackle shop, you can come into Predator Tackle with a tenner and leave with change, but have enough equipment to go for an afternoon's fishing, I think that's a bargain. And it's not like after that session you've got to go and buy it again, because as long as you don't snag too many, that might last you a few weeks before you need to replenish. So it's a really cost-effective way of fishing that.
And that is the beauty about lure fishing. You know, we speak to a lot of carp anglers, we speak to a lot of match anglers. You know, they're spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds on ground bait, on boilies. You know, £10, £12, £15 a kilo.
Yep.
You know, a bag of ground bait is £4 these days. They're balling out and chucking it in. You're getting nothing. You're spending £4.
Yeah.
You know, you that can last you 2-3 weeks if you're not, and you're fishing every day, or you know that will easily last you over a session.
Yeah.
You know, if you are fishing in snaggy areas. If not, it lasts for weeks. I've got loads of packets of lures that are half opened, you know, that I've used, and you know, and I've still got. So
yeah, exactly. Like I say, if you're not fishing too snaggy areas, they will, you know, you can buy a pack in 16th of June, and you might still have them in August. You know, it's all depending on the areas you're fishing and so on. So. Yeah, like I say, if you don't want to spend too much, if you're feeling your way into the sport,
but it's a great situation to have. I've run out because I've caught the fish of knackered them all out, you know. And you will get you know, they are soft. You know, a lot of the soft plastics are very soft. You know, it hasn't got an elastic in it. You know, it isn't a floating bait. It's a very buoyant, soft bait, which does make a difference. And I say buoyant, it's probably a bit of a neutral buoyancy. It's not sitting up like Z-Man does or any of the other Flotex types of baits. It's just a natural bait which will move within the water and everything else as well. So I think it's a great choice.
We've had this conversation recently, and I think materials of bait is almost as important as the profile of bait. There are certain baits that seem to outfish other baits that look very similar. I think the material is vital. I think even though you don't get as many fish on a softer bait, I think that makes a massive difference to your catch rate.
You mean you will get as many catches.
You will catch
that
more,
lure just won't last as long.
That you might get, let's say.
But that's a real good situation to have. Sorry, I've caught 25 fish today and it smashed my lure to pieces.
Yeah.
Do you know what? For £4 I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, exactly. You will
So,
catch more fish on a softer bait, but you might get less fish per bait.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah, happy days.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
So I think going on to trying to stick with the soft plastics to start with. For drop shotting,
I'll keep that. Just move that over.
So for drop shotting, it's weird really, because it's a technique that took me a long time to get to grips with. I hated drop shotting even a few years ago. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't find the way that I was fishing it I was getting the most out of the technique, because the amount of people that fish a drop shot and do really well, not just in the UK, across Europe, you know, if you include the States as well, people smash it up on drop shot. And it wasn't until like the last few years I can't ignore it anymore. I need to get better at it. That I love it now. It's one of my go-to rigs throughout the summer, autumn and winter. And I think if you are sight fishing for perch especially, I caught a lot of fish in the summer in venues where the colour drops out and I can see the fish. I used to try to get them to react to jerk baits, crank baits, things like that. I completely changed how I sight fish for perch now.
Right.
It's always on a drop shot, and the reason being is because you can chuck the drop shot behind the fish, inch it to the side of them, just in front of them. I will have quite a long tail, meaning the gap between the weight and where I have the hook and the bait, I will have that. If I'm fishing 6 foot of water, I might have a drop shot set at 4 foot. And the reason being is because in that situation, I can then have like a tight line, so my bait is there's 4 foot off the bottom, and I can then just lower the rod tip, and that will fall under its own weight. And the amount of
so you're
fish,
almost slack lining. So you've got a tight. You're
Yeah.
bringing the drop shot rig
Yeah.
with the lure, you know, this far off
Yeah.
off the bottom, and then you're just slack lining it to allow that
just
to
lowering
flutter
that
down.
rod tip and let it flutter down under its own weight. The only
Almost
reason,
free rigging it.
Exactly. The only reason the drop shot is there is for casting weight. And the good thing as well about drop, you don't need to see the fish to be able to do that. If I cast a drop shot out, and again, let's say I'm fishing 6 foot of water and I've set it for 4 foot, if I'm getting hits instantly, I know the fish are feeding in the upper layers. If I'm getting them nearer the bottom, then I can think, right, okay, maybe I need to either shorten the tail of a drop shot or maybe try something different.
So you're fishing that column column of water as such, and you're you know, sorry to go over this because I'm nicking your secrets.
No.
You know, because I personally wouldn't have done that. I lower my tip. I don't slacken the line off completely.
Yeah.
I do try and have a little bit of attention on it, but if I'm fishing a tail quite high with the lure halfway up, I will lower my rod down, so I am fishing that column of water with the lure as such. But then I'll just get that little bit of movement backwards and forwards. If you're dropping it all the way down, I understand that now.
All you're looking for, even though you're not going to necessarily feel the bite, you're just watching your line and you'll just see it literally like move an inch sometimes. That's your bite, and then you just wind down and set the hook. And again, with drop shotting, I use the size 8, the Ilex ones. They're razor sharp. The angle that the eye comes off the shank is perfect for the drop shot. It's slightly turned out so it sits just nice on the line.
So let's get this right. These Ilex hooks are a little bit more expensive than other brands,
but they are razor sharp.
And you are getting. It's going to be very hard for you viewers to sort of like see this. You are getting something that is a very finesse style hook, and is, as you said, it is razor sharp. You know, it's sticky sharp. You know, I don't know if you can see that, but it is sticky sharp. My hands are absolutely filthy, but. You use quite a small hook there as a drop shot.
When you're, let's say for argument's sake, right, we're fishing, let's say the rock stars, let's just use that as an example. When a fish bites that, it's because the hook is sort of like midway down the body. That, you know, you need that fish to, you know, you need a hook to match that size of the bait. Now, when you're fishing a drop shot, and
let me have this for you.
So when you're fishing a drop shot, because you're nose hooking the bait.
Right.
Now again, this is a lot of people.
So what we've got
is
a kiddie, right?
Yeah,
a kiddie.
Kiddies. Again, as when you're sight fishing for big fish, I would always use the smallest possible bait, because if these fish, you've got to remember, it's not just me that's seeing them; it's every other angler that's walking the banks. Those fish would have seen everything. Small inert baits, no paddle tails, just a little V-tail, little V-tail.
Right. So when you're drop shotting, you don't want a paddle tail. You will use a V or a pintail type thing. I've even seen you cut the paddles off. Actually, some of the paddle tails just to to fix that situation that you need. But so this is a delicate bait as well. I can see it's a delicate bait. It has got a hook vein on the top, not on its belly. I'll try and hold that, but. We'll try and get a better picture of that, but it's quite a translucent bait. That what's this one?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a ghost brown. I'm not very good at that, but yeah. So go on, sorry. How would you hook that?
So I literally just nose hook it.
So if you've got a normal drop shot, you're going to go straight through the bottom, through the nose, yeah.
Yep.
Like so. Right.
Yeah. Now you can thread it on, but I prefer to nose hook because you've got a lot more freer action.
So you're nose hooking it, and the reason why you're nose hooking it is to when the perch comes to the side, it moves the
there
bait
is that, but because I'm using these to sight fish for big fish, you know, like 3 pounders, 4 pounders, things like that. They're going to completely engulf that. Now, what that is mimicking is there's a lot of pin fry about in the summer.
Right.
That is a very similar size to what they are feeding on. And now, if you've got a perch that's sat there and it's seen paddle tails, creature baits, everything thrown at it, and it's got that falling under its own weight, it is so innocuous and almost safe.
Yeah.
They will eat them without even sort of like investigating it. You know, is this something safe to eat? They will just turn. It amazed. And if anybody watched YPC with the 4 pounder that I had in that, it was exactly the same way of doing it. So those perch have seen everything. They get fished a lot, so I don't tend to fish for them too much, purely because sometimes you just can't even get in them areas. But those fish have seen everything. Now what I ended up doing with that was casting out before the fish come back in.
Right.
When the fish then came in, I just then lowered the rod tip very slowly, so that started to fall under its own weight. One of, if not the biggest fish in that pod, just turned, didn't even slow down, just turned and took it as if you was like throwing a maggot in.
So this was under no tension. The rig was
the
already
rig was under tension until I saw the fish coming,
right.
and I tried to lower the bait or let the bait fall.
Yeah.
So they would sort of intercept each other so the fish is coming in, that bait's up here. I'm like, so I want them to sort of cross like that.
Yeah.
And that fish took it as good as gold, just like you was throwing in maggots. You know, it was that.
And do you rig your drop shot so it's at a right angle like that, or do you prefer it slightly lower? Do you move the bait down on the shank a little bit?
No.
Or
So
do you...
I will actually sometimes I won't even have the hook point penetrating the top of the bait, so it's sat.
It's gonna be harder. Yeah. So you wouldn't.
So either how you've got it there, or
through its chin, or you're gonna have it there.
So basically, thread it on exactly the same way you just did, but don't pierce the top of the head with the hook point. Like that. So it's sat like that.
Like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Okay.
And then when
so it's almost through the chin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it coming through the chin, and the point is still in its nose.
Exactly,
like that.
Just like that. Yeah. So. One thing, again, going on to hook size, when we're fishing jig heads and things like that, we want to match the hook to the bait that we're using. I will always, the biggest size drop shot hook I will use is a 6. And in the Ilex, and it's a small 6 with Ilex. This is a size 8, which I do most of my fishing, because if you think about it, whether we're using, let's say, a giant hook or we're using this, it's still coming out at the same point of the bait. So the fish have still got to either hit it so it bends in, or completely
so that's going to move around like that.
Yeah. So again, people might disagree with this, but it's what I've got confidence in. I don't miss many fish on a drop shot. I will use a size 8 or a 6 for most size. I've used really big baits on a tiny hook, but because the hook is still in the same position of the lure, as long as that hook point penetrates that fish, you set the hook, it's hooked. It doesn't matter if it's on a really big, let's say a size 2 or something like that, or
what I'm noticing for that is the position of the bait.
Yeah.
That's holding better in that position than it is if I've gone all the way through the chin. You know, it's
because of that is why another reason I don't want a massive hook, because if you then imagine that on, let's say, a size 2 or something like that, there's going to be so much metal hanging out the front of it. To me, I've always been, the less on the rig, the better. I don't use beads if I'm using a Texas rig and things. I want minimal. I want it to look
as much as possible. No more drag.
No. I will always use small baits, fine wire hooks. I think again for perch are important. But yeah, minimal is best in my opinion. You know, people might disagree with that, but again, everybody's got their own way of fishing.
Well, it's not like you've caught any big fish in your time, is it? You know? And I must that when we watched the YPC and you hooked into that big perch and it went for that second charge, I thought, oh my god, you're going to lose that. You know, so well, that's interesting, Ash. That's really good. So I'll keep that. Right, next.
Right, so again, we'll stick with the soft plastics to start with, and then we'll go on to hard baits after. So when it comes to fishing shads, I've mentioned this recently, but probably every freshwater, maybe even saltwater lure angler, maybe in the world, will have some form of a shad in their tackle box. My favourite has quickly became the Gunki Peps, because I can use it for various things. Again, we'll cover that soon. But you can use these on these are the G-Skull jig heads. They work fine on those. If you just want to cast out and be a bit more active, you cast it out, especially in the summer, keep it in the upper layers, straight retrieve, that's fine. But if you're
just
fishing,
get one of these out. So these the Peps baits as well is a thinner profile bait, so it's not a bulbous bait. It's got quite a thin profile to it. Okay, also got a belly and top veins on it as well. So you can fish it weedless if you like, but you like an exposed hook, and you're going to just fish that with quite a big, really exposed hook. That's a size 1. You know, that's going to protrude quite well. But I can see firstly.
So because this bait's flat, when you're fishing it on a jig head, you are going to get some of that side to side roll. So if you're just a predator angler and you want to go and catch pike and perch, sand or whatever, especially for pike, body roll is excellent for pike. So if you're using a jig head with something like that, it's a very flat sides, you're going to get the tail moving, but you're also going to get that kind of almost like a side to side rocking action.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that's so good for the pike is you get the contrast between the lighter belly and the darker back.
Right.
Really, really effective.
Phone's ringing. This is live. My phone's ringing. So, out. I've just stabbed myself 30 times. Let me just, if I may, try and rig this as best or as effectively as I can. So this is just a normal standard
normal jig head.
Jig head, yeah. So this is again, these straight in the middle.
Straight in the middle, and then just as you would do any other shad on a jig head.
So pull it down, straight down, and you've got a nice vein. I'll try and do it first time, and so it's going to look like that, and you're going to basically push the actual lure onto the keeper as such. The keeper that is.
Yeah, so you want the head of the bait, like where you would imagine like the mouth, the lips of the bait, you want it to be basically kissing the jig head. Right. Yeah. But again, you've rigged countless numbers of soft baits and things like that. If you again are new to the sport, what I would do is lay the shad.
Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Right. Let's start again.
Because again, it's very important that when we're rigging shads, they're straight. We don't want them to have like little kinks in them and things like that. So if you lay it down like that, right up against as you basically want it hooked.
Yeah.
You can take your hook point and just cut like a little tiny nick where that hook wants to come out of the bait.
Right, so I've just put a little mark on there so I know that's how far I'm going to go down.
Yep, so it's all about just taking your time.
And I pinch these to and I know I do pinch them too hard, but you're going straight in the middle.
Straight in the middle, yeah. You know, trying to keep it as central as possible until you get to where that little nick is, and then you bring the hook point out, and then you should end up with a perfectly straight bait. It will track nice through the water. Perfectly rigged shad. So
what I've done, I can see the little nick where I've done it, and when I've put that point in, I can see that nick is going to take, if I bring the hook point there, it's going to take it straight up, and like you said, kiss the actual jig head. So just gently put it down, keeping the bait as straight as you possibly can. Yeah, so you are right, so it's not going to rig or be rigged fat or thin. No. You know, and stuff like that.
So again, you've got a perfect.
So I've gone at a slightly angle there. So I've got quite a large.
Yeah, I mean that will still work. You've got plenty of the hook point shouting. Because of that, you're going to get, because there's more weight at the top of the bait. It's going to roll a bit more as you're retrieving it.
So, but you're saying for the optimum is trying to keep this as straight within the body as possible.
So if you can go you want to keep that hook point so it's not the shank of the hook wants to be sort of parallel with the bait.
Johnny H5 here, proper not doing it well, but we'll try and get that in there. So that is straighter, and the good thing about, you know, I've just rigged that isn't as straight as it possibly can, but you can pull back on these.
You know, people will get the idea. You know, so that is one way to, and this is again with the peps, you can do so many things with that one bait. And one of the other ways that I started fishing last year, and I had an unbelievable amount of fish on these in the winter, fishing it like this. So what we've basically got is the peps, which we then put a nail weight through the. So if you look at a peps, you've got the dark back, and then you've got the lighter coloured belly. So we want to push the nail weight through the head, but in the lighter part of the bait, so the belly portion, if that makes sense, but going through the head.
So if you got a
so that's we want one of those.
So we've got an EWG 10 wide gate finesse, so from Ilex, okay.
So if you can get one of the,
and I think Ash has got a Vike now mix pack there.
So again, once we've explained this, I'll explain why the mix pack is a good way to start. But yeah, if that one there, which I think is a 0.9.
0.9.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we want to take that nail weight and we want to push that into.
So on the top of these baits, there is sort of like two bubbles as such of where they've sort of like injected and from the mould. So you're putting it in the bottom.
In the bottom half of the bait, but you're trying to. The only thing is, again, because these baits are very soft, just do it. You need to be nice and careful and steady with it, because we don't want to split the bait.
Right. So I put it in there as straight as I possibly can.
So what we want to do is with these is once we've got the nail weight in as far as we can push, another nail weight to then push that all the way in. So when we're looking at the bait like head first, we can't actually see any of the exposed metal.
Right, so you either use a larger nail weight to push it in,
to push it all the way in,
or
don't use the hook point, but just use the eye of the hook. That's what I tend to use. That's it.
Right, so it's still sticking out a little bit.
Yeah, so it's again just for the, that's how in a real world fishing situation I would like to have it. That's it, perfect. Right. So then what we do is we then Texas rig it sideways. So you want to be threading it in just above where the weight is. So
this is not as you would normally. This is
sideways.
sideways.
So we want this sideways.
So you're going through the middle, just missing the nail.
Missing the nail.
So normally you'd come through the chin, but you're coming back through the head.
Out basically where the eye is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
then where the eye is.
Thread it all the way on again,
make sure
like you would normally Texas rigging it.
Right, bang in the middle, so that you are literally going down the side of where that nail weight is, coming out by its eye. Yeah, threading it all the way down,
through, and then turning it over, and then just going through the body. So again, it's as straight as possible.
So that will naturally, if you've done it straight, it will naturally sit right in the middle of the lure.
It will, yeah.
Yeah, bend the lure back a little bit, so you've got that little bit of spare, to allow the hook to sit neatly.
Yeah. So what we want is,
he says, it's fallen off there.
Yeah, this is a little bit of trial and error.
Yeah. So I've never done this before, so I'm nicking at Ash's secrets yet again. Right. Oh, no, back a bit, back a millimetre, like so.
Yep.
So it's, we are right on the line there, because these are very oily, greasy,
they can
smooth. It just needs to work out where it needs to be.
Yeah. If we use this one as an example.
So basically what you're saying is I've got it wrong, Ash, yeah?
It's just trial and error. It's just trying to find the right point.
And you expect other people to do this?
No, it's a bit like rigging a jig head.
Give it that.
It's a bit like when you're rigging a jig head, it's a very
perfectly
simple
done
thing
there.
to do.
Cut that out, cut that bit out. There we go.
But yeah, so with
Here's
this...
one I prepared earlier,
there you go, Blue Peter style. But so with this, that hook is ever so slightly exposed, so what I would end up doing is, again, in a real world fishing situation, is just basically push the lure towards the eye of the hook.
I'll do that.
And then that's it. So then the hook point, no weed can catch on that, but then if a fish comes from behind to bite that, it's going to push that down on the shank. Your hook point's going to be exposed.
Yeah.
That will sort of slide right down, and then
so you've taken a paddle tail bait completely and rigged it completely different.
Yeah.
You've put a nail weight in it. You've turned it on its side. Why?
So there's a technique in America that is so effective for the bass called snapping a tube.
Snapping a tube.
Yeah. So it's basically you'll use a tube, which is, if you imagine, it's trying to keep it as simple as possible. It's a stick bait that's hollow.
Right.
And there's a special type of jig head that you rig with them. But the idea, that's kind of irrelevant. The idea is you'll cast it out and you'll let it fall under its own weight, and they have this thing they call the death spiral. So just like a dying fish, when it's falling through the water, it'll have a spiral like that.
Yeah.
Hits the bottom, you'll snap the rod tip up, which will then, it'll dart off the bottom, and then it will spiral back down.
So you're not so the weight you've got here is the weight of the lure, and the weight of the actual nail weight, and the hook, So that is all you're fishing with. So really, you're fishing with around about 3 grams there. Yeah. Maybe 3.5 grams worth of weight.
Exactly. So the one thing when you're fishing on this bait specifically, it's a 7 centimetre bait. We don't really want to go over 1.5 gram when it comes to the nail weights, because they're bigger in diameter, they're longer. You can split the bait. Yeah. So 1.5 gram and below is ideal, but because it's got such a thin wrist to the tail, this doesn't take a lot of weight to get that tail to kick. Right. So with that, again, in where we fish, the summer the weed is shocking. In winter, some of the areas are snaggy, and you can lose so much, so many jig heads, things like that. Yeah. Because there's no hook point exposed, but more importantly, there's no weight exposed. Most of the time that we snag, it's not necessarily the hook that's snagging, it's the weight that's getting stuck behind things. Right. So when we cast that out, we'll let that sink, it will spiral down like a tube. Yeah. any snags, you are going to lose it. There's nothing that is 100% snag proof, but that's very close.
Yeah.
So let's say you've got branches, things like that. There's no weight to drag it behind things, so it'll just tend to sit on snags rather than be dragged
Down
into it.
Yeah.
And then again, we'll snap the rod tip, and that will shoot up.
Well, not snap the rod tip.
No, just jerk the rod tip up. This will dart off the bottom. You'll get the movement from the tail, and then when we kill the rod again and let it fall, it's got to be on a slack line. Because if it's on a semi-slack line, there's still tension there. So instead of falling and spiralling down, it's just going to pendulum back towards you, and it's sort of going to defeat the object of fishing it this way.
So you're fishing that in snaggy structure
windy
areas, and you're basically casting it out, letting it fall under its own tension, letting it settle. Are you leaving it for a while?
Depending on the time of year, again in the winter when I was fishing this, I was actually fishing it slightly different. I was having the rod tip up, but I was using the reel to move the bait because I didn't want it to come off the bottom too fast.
Right, so you're almost dragging
it. So I'm casting it up the bottom, and I'll just lift the rod tip up, and all I want, say that's the bottom, I want it to sort of just lift up nice and slowly, and when I kill it, it's just going to spiral down for that last foot or two of water.
Small column of water.
Yeah.
If not, you're casting it out, flicking it up, and allowing it then to spiral round back down to.
So there is no. I can't say to you, leave this for 3 seconds and you'll catch a fish, or 10 seconds. That's sort of what we have to work out on the day. Some days we want to fish these. It'll hit the bottom, especially in the summer, and I'll instantly snap it up again because
so they're chasing. They're chasing more in the summer. In the winter a little bit.
Yeah, in the winter I might pause that for 10-15 seconds and then snap the rod tip again for it to come off.
Yeah.
But that's something that we have to work out ourselves because every day is different. You know, nothing's going to work the same 2 days in a row.
I don't think I see many people have thought about doing that, or even. If there's anyone else out there doing it, if we just nicked your secret.
No. So I'm the only thing I'm ever cautious about for obvious reasons. You have to be a little bit cautious with giving spots away because obviously we want to protect the fish and our own fish in the end of the day. But when it comes to techniques and how to fish, I've always been quite an open book with that. I like to try to get other people into the sport and by showing them newer things. Again, this is a really cost-effective way of fishing because you're going to lose less equipment over the long run. And that's, again, IU, one of my favourite colours. But another really good colour is the silver arrow because it's got that. I like to look at that little bit of orange as a target point. I'll sometimes take the front treble off my crankbaits and replace it with a red one.
Right.
Again, does it make a difference or not? It's just what I have confidence in. You know.
All these little things add up, don't they?
100%. Yeah. But with that rig, if we do need a heavier weight, but we can't use this particular size because let's say we want to use a.
So I don't know. What size perch are you targeting with this?
With a 7 centimetre bait, you'll catch less tiny fish. The bigger the bait, I don't necessarily think it means bigger fish. It just means you're going to get less small fish.
Right.
7 centimetres, that sort of size point, in my opinion, where you'll catch. You're going to average a bigger size on a 7 centimetre bait than what you are on a 4 centimetre bait.
Yeah.
So that you will catch. I mean, I had fish to. I can't remember what the biggest fish I had in the winter on that was, but you're talking mid to upper threes.
Right.
But you
so
are.
This is your 3 pounder
go-to. So if you're going to
rig.
go out and you want to catch. You just want to get bites, but you want to give yourself a really good chance of getting an above average fish. 7 centimetre, in my opinion, is a great point.
You'll still catch small fish. You're still having a go at that,
exactly. You're still going to get small fish on that, but you're going to get less small fish than if you were using the little rock stars.
Targeting the slightly bigger ones within.
You're going to average a bigger size on that than what you would do the rock stars. Now, if you are fishing a venue that's maybe there's a bit more flow to it or slightly deeper, and you're going to need to use, let's say, like a 3 gram. Nail weight. I would then go up to the Peps in the 9 centimetre.
I love that colour. That's probably my favourite.
Yeah, the Ghost Strike perch. It's again you've got a bit of a target point because it's got flashes of orange in it. The lighter green is see through.
It's quite translucent, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So it's another great colour.
That is, but perch each perch at the end of the day.
Very cannibalistic.
And that is, the colours on that are absolutely fantastic.
So a good way as just a bit of a starting point when you are picking a colour, especially in clear water in the summer, whatever there is how do I word this? Whatever there is the most in your venue, let's say whether it's a noted silverfish venue,
right.
Something like that, like the silver arrow, that's going to be better, because if the fish are feeding more on silverfish than they are on their own kind, then that is a better option in my opinion.
So you're matching the hatch as much as you possibly
can. If you've got a huge population of small perch, then I would go for that over that.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because I have seen you do it.
Yeah.
You are 100% right, and that will. But then there's times where they're so preoccupied on those, you know, the natural, what is it? They're eating the fry, they're eating the baby perch, they're eating, and would you chuck a total, like you did earlier, like the Rockstar in UFO in a big chartreuse colour? You chuck something else.
Yeah. So
have you ever found that they're going, what the hell is that?
When we talk about matching the hatch, I want to match the hatch a little bit, but I still want my bait to stand out as well.
Right.
If you've got, let's say you've got 10,000 roach in a 50-yard section of river, which can happen in the winter, they can shoal up. If you're chucking out something that looks so lifelike, all you're doing really is adding another bait fish into a mix of thousands
of bait fish. Yeah.
So by using something like that, that's got a little bit of like a vocal point to it. Even that, you've got something again with the orange tail.
Yeah.
It's going to look similar to what they're feeding on, but again, it might just catch their eye.
It's going to stand out.
Yeah,
a bit more. Yeah.
It sounds a bit
instead
like
of being really, really, really bright.
Yeah. Again, though, is when it's in them situations, I still don't think that I found the winning formula. I will catch fish when they are preoccupied, but I'm still sort of again with. There is so much to learn with lure fishing. You're never going to reach the end where you know it all, and that is an area where I'm still. Yeah, exactly. It's a book that never finishes at the end of the day. That is one area that I am still trying to come up with different ways, better ways of catching those bigger fish when they are preoccupied. Now you can catch them on crankbaits, you can catch them on bladed jigs, you can catch them on these, and you will. But when you're in an area where there are thousands upon thousands of bait fish and there are hundreds upon hundreds of perch feeding on them, I still am not happy with my return of how many I'm catching to how many fish are in that area. So that is saying that I am still evolving.
I don't know if they're there all the time now. I've seen you grind the spot out for a couple of hours and then all of a sudden you'll catch one, and you're like, well, how did you know it was there? Well, I just had a feeling it was there.
Yeah, I think... again, it's something that sounds really stupid, but you do get a feeling when it looks that right, and you're not getting a bite. Sometimes it is worth just. The problem is when we have round our way is, I would rather leave the spot and then return to it, but I also don't want to leave the spot and then somebody else catch that fish that I think might be there. Most of the time, especially in the summer, 10-15 minutes, you've got a very good idea whether you're wasting your time or not. Now in the winter, again, just going back to that fish during the YPC, that took some catching that fish. Now we could have gone there, had a few chucks, nothing moved. But when you are really confident in a spot, it can just be, right, I'm going to try a crankbait, that's not worked. Okay, let's try a drop shot, let's try a shad. And it's at some point you will find what that fish wants. Right. So it's a lot of trial and error. There is no exact science to lure fishing.
No, that's why you carry about 10 bags worth of stuff. If you ever see Ash on the bank, he's on his bike and he might as well have a trader on his bike as well. He's covered with
I will first
with every single fishing situation.
And the ironic thing is probably 50% that I take I never use, but I want it just in case. So yeah.
So what else we got?
So what is sticking with the summer? The sort of the summer thing. We're not far away from the new season.
Yeah.
We'll have a look at top water baits now. So we've got the Gunki Megalon.
Yeah.
This is in the white tendance colour.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason why I like this colour is, again, it's very natural. It's if you've got the best time to throw top water is if you've got fry scattering on the surface and you can see perch striking at them. That is going to match the hatch pretty well. But because it's got rattles in it, it's got a splash of red in it, it will still stand out to everything. So if you imagine that you've got a ball of roach that the perch are feeding on, you know, they're striking out near the surface, You chuck that and you bring that straight through that ball of roach. Those roach are going to scatter, and what's left in the centre of that ball is your bait. So any perch underneath that's going to see that.
Oh, it's proper stuck in there. But so this is a walk the dog style
bait.
So it's not a popper. It's not making a lot of splash. But your sound is. I'm just gonna. There's a lot of ball bearings in there.
Yeah.
So
it's a loud bait.
Yeah. It's quite dense.
It's more of a knock than a rattle.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
Now sometimes you don't want the noise.
I'm going to say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 or 9. Yeah, 6. 8,
yeah.
8 rattles in there, or 8 bearings in there, or weights in there, or such. But that's a weighty lure for a top water.
But they cast a mile.
Yeah.
So if you're fishing, let's say you're fishing down the bank and you've got reed beds going all up that all up to your margins, you can bomb that a mile down the margins, and that's where a lot of the fish will be rounding bait fish up against the bank, up against reed beds.
So again, quite a large bait, 7.5 centimetres.
Again, it is, but when you consider how big, even let's say a 2-pounder, which is not a particularly huge fish, that will engulf. No, but that would engulf that bait, and I've got a photo on my phone somewhere of one of these right down the neck of a particularly small perch. It was like, how did that manage to do that? But
it's a good, beautiful looking bait.
They are really nice. But again, with top water baits, with a walk the dog, why I use these is you're covering water incredibly quickly because you can fish those really fast. It's called
just
whacking.
About to ask you that. You're fishing this quite fast. You're not doing it quite slow, and it's just walking the dog slowly. It is zigzagging across.
So obviously in an ideal world we're going to use that and we're going to catch fish. But if the fish are not particularly on it, you'll get lots of follows. So if I'm fishing an area and I'm getting loads of follows, but they're all, let's say they're all fish around 4 to 10 ounces,
right?
And I don't see anything that I think, I want something bigger than that, I will then move area. And then even if we get a follow from a 3-pounder, but it doesn't commit, it doesn't matter. We've found the area where a bigger fish is, and the chances are he's not going to be on his own. So then we can go to other techniques to then try to catch the fish. These are probably, in my opinion, the ultimate in fish finding. It's basically having a fish finder on the end of your rod. Because
so you're not necessarily catching the fish with this lure.
It's the ultimate search bait.
Yeah, you're waking up to see what is in that area.
And again, in an ideal world, we'll catch on that, and we will catch plenty of fish on that. But more importantly, in my opinion, it's I want to find the fish in the stamp of fish that I'm looking to catch. So
that's a real good way of looking at it. You're not picking these lures here to not necessarily catch you that fish at that time, but allow you to work out what is there if there is anything there.
Exactly.
So you're waking up. Yeah. You're almost like a pole angler would splash on the top of the water, like a carp angler would to keep spotting or whatever. You're using these baits to search out and to work out what is in front of you, if there is something in front of you, and the quickest way possible to do that. Right.
So if you think about the venues that we have locally, they're almost perfectly straight. There's not a massive amount of features. We can waste a huge amount of time fishing an area where there is either no fish or they're very small fish. With that, we can cover an area within minutes and then move, cover another area. And all we are looking for is one, even if it's a bit of a half-arsed follow, doesn't matter, as long as we can see the fish, reacting to that, and then we can think, right, okay, is that fish big enough for me to warrant spending an hour here trying to go through the motions of trying to find
and you're going to go through your armoury of baits to work out what that's.
We may get that fish to react slightly to the top water bait, but not enough to commit, and we might catch that fish on a drop shot. So that is just trying to find the bigger fish, and it's excellent for that.
Cool, nice, I like that. Good, megalon.
Yeah,
lovely.
So sticking with the top water, we've got the Hedora popper.
Now you've used quite a small popper Hedora.
They even come in a smaller size
of your fishing. This is quite a big one. Well, I say a big one. So 55 centimetres.
Yeah, they come in
55 centimetres, 55 millimetres, 5.5 centimetres. That's a big popper. That is, yeah.
So you can get these in quite big sizes. I know. I think it was Chris Reed who fishes for Relax.
Yeah.
Before then, he had a huge bass on the bigger version of that, so they were great saltwater bait as well.
Right.
So
again, quite translucent.
That's the Mad Lemon colour, which is my favourite again because it's natural because it's quite clear. It looks like a small fish in regards to its colour, but it's got the loud rattle.
So it's got 3 bearings at the front, which
Yeah.
is in a chamber within its top section here. So there's 3 bearings in the front there, and then there's 2 bearings in the back of it. One's bigger than the other, and I can already. I'm just going to shout rattle this. This is a louder.
That's a rattle. That's
pitch,
a knock.
Yeah,
it's a different pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. So and what's the purpose of the feather?
So with a feather, the idea is as well. I've heard from some some top anglers in Europe that it basically makes the back treble lighter.
Right.
So it should make when a fish.
So
comes
it's
up
not
behind,
sitting down like. So generally, sometimes it could be sitting up there a little bit more.
And again, it's a little bit more flash, a bit more attractant as well.
Right.
But
I think this was Frederick Julian who nicked this idea.
It was.
Yeah,
it
who was the main man at Gunki many moons ago.
Yeah.
And and it was also, I think, he nicked it off the fly anglers as well.
Yeah.
So so a bit of fly versus jerk maybe on that was that inspiration for that as well. So it's good. It's a good addition, isn't it?
It is. So with that bait, and again, like all real like high quality poppers, you can fish them fast and you will get like a walk the dog style action, but just not as wide. It will be more like that than sort of darting to the side. So you can use that again as a search bait, but I will use poppers more to sort of find a fish on the megalon,
right,
and then you use this to sort of pick an area apart.
So this has got a rattle and a splash. So this the way this is formed, it's got quite a flat but a angled flat nose, so it will push the water out.
It will
and cause a splash as such.
I really like using it. So if you're fishing up against pylons, or you're fishing parallel to a jetty, or up parallel to walls and things like that, because you can bomb it. Again, these cast a mile. Even the smaller size will cast really far. You cast it out, let it hit the water, and again, how many pops that we do will be down to the angler to find out on the day what the fish actually want. Sometimes it can be 1 pop and then a really long pause. Other times it can be several pops really quickly and then a pause. But these are, I would sort of class these as more of a finesse version of a top water bait, because we can fish it slower. Chuck it out, let it hit the water, a couple of pops, and what happens is these will create rings. Let the rings disperse and then a couple more pops. And again, what that is representing is a dying fish in the upper layers. It's just a couple of little pops.
Some a little bit of a movement.
So if you see a fish that's dying on the surface, it creates rings. Yeah. So that is doing the same thing. Again, really good in those areas where you've got lots of structure, because you can really slowly pick areas apart. Again, so, and another thing as well, when you pop them quite hard and they sort of dart under the water, it creates like a bubble trail behind them as well. So it's another type.
So what I'm getting at, a key element, what I'm getting out of what you're saying, Ash, is all these baits here, can be fished in multiple different ways.
100%.
To allow you to work out, how to catch that fish, perch, whatever it is. Now, most people will take a paddle tail bait, a shad tail type bait, cast it out, retrieve. Or they will move it up and down. But you're working out, even from the hard baits, from the poppers to surface baits, you're trying to utilise this bait in 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to work out how to catch that fish.
Another way as well that these are really effective, when we've got really grown on weed and you've got those little holes in the weed, if you can chuck them into them holes and then just shake the rod tip, because all you're doing is creating rings around the bait. And if there are fish patrolling in these little gaps, you can get some, especially with pike, they can literally jump out and clean. It's like a great white breaching almost, So it's another way that you can utilise that bait.
So what we're going to say, interestingly about these baits, and I know you're utilising the baits for a lot of different things as well, but these aren't just freshwater baits, they are used with the saltwater anglers and everything else as well. Now the bass anglers are loving a megalon and loving a popper for different situations, but certainly for the bass, on the top. But
I've caught bass in the estuaries on the like the walk the dog style baits like the megalon, but there are anglers out there that are far more qualified to cover the sea aspect of these baits. I like to sort of stay in my lane and talk about what I know and what I've done extensively. So when it comes to the saltwater side of it, like I say, there are other anglers that are far more knowledgeable than me. So I don't like to cover things that I'm not that clued up on.
Not very good at bass angling.
No.
Right, what else you got?
Right, so what I'll do, we'll cover the one crankbait that I have picked out, and we'll do the bladed jigs after. So with crankbaits, there are so many on the market now. It can be, again, hard to know what am I looking for. With the Kraken, because it's got no rattle in it.
Let me grab that one.
Yeah. I'm a massive fan of reaction baits, but without the noise. Now,
right, so you've got all these rattles here, and now you're going subsurface.
Yeah, this is filling a gap.
Right,
so
okay.
we want something for sort of every situation. Now, when you're fishing for, again, from my point of view, the perch, when they start to see lots of baits, lots of noisy baits, things like that, you just want something that's that little bit different to what they're used to seeing. Now, if you imagine you've got a pod of, let's say you've got 6 perch in a pod, and they're all £3 plus. If you whack a crankbait through there, and let's say it's just a regular crankbait with a rattle, again, it's one thing that it's got quite flat sides. This bait,
it's got a square bill,
but yeah, it's got a deep-ish body,
yeah,
where the sides are fairly flat, and this has quite a nice. It doesn't have too much of a wide action. With perch crankbaits, I'm looking for that tight, like.
So this has got a tight wobble on it.
Yeah, it's not incredibly tight, but it's sort of in that area between really tight action baits and the ones that have got the really wide kick to them. So this is sort of fits in that middle ground. But where this is surprisingly difficult to find crankbaits that are completely silent without the rattle. Now what you can do with this, if you shake that, but let the treble hooks like still sounds like a rattle. Now what you can do if you're fishing for ultra pressured fish, you can take the split rings off and literally make your split rings out of braid or even fluorocarbon, which is killing the noise even further, because these still will have the trebles making contact with the body, which is still making some form of noise. But you've got a pod of 6 fish, you whack a crankbait through, let's say you catch 2 of them, your crankbait's making noise, it's a rattle, they'll sense the vibration from the rattle, and then all of a sudden you've got 2. Let's say you've got 2 in the net. You make another cast, and all these fish now they're wary because they are now like they're on edge, and they can sense the vibration from the rattles from these baits coming through, and you might then not catch any more. Now if you then chuck a silent bait out and fish it exactly the same way, they're not going to sense that bait from quite as far off. So this is going to be right in amongst a group of fish, and you're going to get those maybe that extra reaction bite. So by using a crankbait with a rattle to catch a few fish, and then when they stop biting, switch over to a silent bait, you can get the odd bonus fish that you wouldn't have caught.
Again, working out how to catch those fish.
Exactly.
Or catch the numbers of fish.
It's trying out. Every time we go fishing, there are always more fish in that swim than what we catch, and this is just trying to get those extra fish out of the swim that we wouldn't have caught without making these changes.
Right, so this has got quite a flat square bill to the front of it. So I gather that is going to, it's a floating bait, so it's going to sit on the surface, and then as you pull it, it's going to sit forward like that.
Yeah. So with square bill crankbaits, which this one is, I probably wouldn't use this much in the winter, but in the summer, I will fish these. When I say about fishing crankbaits quick, I don't think people realise quite how quick I will reel these baits in as fast as I can move, like I can retrieve.
What, as fast as you possibly can?
Literally as fast as I can retrieve, and then just with the occasional pause. And when I'm pausing, I'm only pausing for maybe not even a second.
So you're super fast.
You'll never,
super fast.
You will never out retrieve how quick a fish can swim. So what we're trying to get the fish's attention with a crankbait. So let's just say, rather than say we're burning it in really fast, we've got a perch following in. That split second pause, and that fish is still moving, and it's in its face. We start to retrieve again, and it's like, oh, I don't want to miss this meal, and then it will react.
You're seeing these fish darting.
Yeah, and because this has got a square bill, if you're fishing over rock or lots of brickwork, things like that, they deflect off a structure, square bills, really well. So again, we've got a crankbait that's sort of digging in the bottom, almost what I call dredging. It will hit a stone or a rock, and it will deflect to the side. And again, if we've got a fish following, it's often that deflection where it will trigger that fish into biting, because it's like, I don't want to miss this opportunity, and then it will hit.
So these have only got a full rate of about a metre, so these will only dive down to about
Yeah, so shallow water, or if you're fishing really weedy, let's say you've got 6 foot of water, but you've got 3 foot of weed, you can just try and tick the top of the weed. So we don't want it to dive into the weed, but we say the weed's here, we want it to sort of like bounce, almost not bounce over the weed, but
and then that's, as you stop, it's starting to come back up.
Yeah, very buoyant bait, excellent for summer, and again it's a really good search bait for covering water. And these, I found these work really well for the pike early to mid autumn. I had a lot of pike on those. Again, I was perch fishing, but the pike just smashed. A couple of these I've got home, I've got hardly any paint left on the sides of them, in that particular colour as well. The pike, certain times of the year, just smashed them to pieces. I had a couple of really good fun sessions for the pike on those.
Happy days. Good. Nice. So it's again working out how those fish want it. You're finding their bait, what they want. Not they're there. You've worked out they're there. Yeah. Let's just try and catch one.
So let's say again,
2, 3, 4.
We've got a rattling crankbait. We've caught 2 fish. We're not getting no more bites, and then we might go on to, let's say, a shad or a drop shot. But by adding the silent crankbait, we've got another stage to go down in. So we might be able to get a couple of fish on the silent crankbait before we then have to go down to a drop shot and things like that.
Got you.
Yeah.
So there's no secret that you do like a boomer.
Yeah.
You do like a bit of a bladed jig, but you also as well fish these slightly different to most, or as it is straight out the packet.
I think again with the boomers, the first thing to mention as well is that they are really, really well priced. You know, they're well under a tenner. Again, this is the tiny boomer. They give off loads of vibration, really good in coloured water, sort of situations you would expect. But again, in crystal clear water, in first light, this one with a chartreuse head, it's got a bit of like black in it. I can't tell you why chartreuse and black or chartreuse and blue works well in low light clear water, but it does. It works really well. So if I'm going down to the river, sun's coming up, I will throw that one for that first half hour to an hour. And again, I will tend to. I'm not going to go into all of the trailers that I use for these because we'll be here all day. But just specifically talking about my favourite trailer, which again is going back to the Gunki Peps.
Right. Yeah.
I will rig them on upside down because a bladed jig or a chatterbait, they push a lot of water. There's a lot of water displacement. So by rigging the shad upside down, so instead of going on like we would do normally, we'll do it this way. The tail works quicker and it matches the blade at the front better, so it looks like a nice compact unit.
So so you're basically taking the pep and you're rigging it as you would normally,
but upside down.
But upside down,
yeah.
with the nose of the all the way up to
all the way up, same as we'd rig it on a jig head.
Right.
Every fish I've ever caught on a bladed jig with a paddle tail as the trailer, every single one has been caught on that rigged upside down. I've never rigged them up the correct way on a...
But what made you do that to begin
Again,
with? What went in your head, Ash, to say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to put it upside down?
Again, you've got to look at how popular lure fishing is in the UK now, but it's still quite a relatively new thing. It's, you know... One of some of the best anglers in the world that lure fish are the American bass anglers. So it's a really good way. It's a really good area to look at. It's not the fact that they're catching largemouth bass and we're catching perch, but it's how the ideas that they've come up with over the years, the things that they bring up that we wouldn't even think about. And the first time I ever heard about rigging a soft plastic upside down and paddle tail was through the American bass anglers. And I started doing it, and I was catching that many fish on it. You think, well, there's definitely something in it.
So that's how it's rigged, like that, is it?
Yeah, like that. Now, one other thing that I will do as well is I will always trim the skirt down, so the skirt ends where the body of the shad ends. So we've got the wrist of the tail here.
Yeah.
I want this skirt to end sort of here.
Oh, right.
Because when that's coming through the water, all that this skirt is doing here is bulking the bait out a little bit, but it's sort of shimmering through the water. Just as you would see bait fish, they have that shimmer to them. So that's matching that. You've got the attraction, the vibration, the blades giving off, the tails going. You've got the shimmer on the body. It's
so
really,
this silicon
Yeah.
type skirt will fan out as you stop.
when you pause, it will fan out. But when you're doing just a straight retrieve, again, it's just, it'll all be flat up against the bait like that. But I don't want all these bits to sort of come down to where the tail is. I want them to finish where the body does.
There you go, that little edge again of taking a couple of mil off the actual silicon
So
skirt.
whether it makes a difference, again,
But it gives you that
it's
confidence.
opinion, but it gives me confidence.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know. And everything that I'm talking about today is what I have confidence in, and it's only my opinion. You get 10 anglers sat at this table, we'll all do it different, but it all works.
Yeah.
Everything that we do works for us, hence why we do it. But that is how I like to
So
fish
this
it.
bladed jig, boomer, chatterbait, call it what you can. You will fish this in different ways as well.
Yeah,
or
so
will
again,
you steady
depending on
retrieve? Will you pause it?
What the easiest way to fish these, and again, it's if you want to sort of branch your fishing out and you want to catch a really big fish, especially in the summer and autumn, these are a really good way to start. Cast them out. That first foot or two, the upper layers of the water where the active fish are going to be, just cast it out and reel it in. It's literally that simple.
So this will
Nice.
fall. It will activate the blade slightly.
It will.
So it will fall head first.
Yep. So you want
Yeah.
a nice steady retrieve. The great thing about a bladed jig is they cause so much vibration you can feel it on the rod tip.
Mm-hmm.
So your retrieve wants to be just quick enough that you start to feel the vibration. If you don't feel the vibration, you're not going quick enough. But it's important not to get too robotic with your retrieves. Speed up, slow down, let it fall. Speed up again, let it fall. The other ways you can fish these, which is really effective, is chuck them out, let them get straight to the bottom, and you're not jerking the rod tip up. You're just lifting it nice and slowly, and then you'll feel the vibration through the rod tip as it's coming up in the water, and then just lower the rod tip again, and you're trying to get the bait to come up off the bottom and then fall back down.
So you're
just
using
pendulum it all the way.
You're
in.
using a chatterbait setup as a normal jig head.
Yeah, it's
So what happens if it gets covered in weed?
with a great
Because
thing
that's always
about-
happens with me.
Well, the great thing about a chatterbait or a bladed jig is this is effectively acting as a weed guard, because you think that's up the front there.
Yeah.
So I will throw that into lily pad beds. I will throw it into weed. When you start to feel it locking up, let the line go slack, and then one or two really hard pulls. Really hard pulls. And not every time, but 9 times out of 10, that will shed any weed it's got on it, and you're fishing effectively again. So if you was to fish those same conditions with all the weed with a crankbait, sometimes the weed will just gather around the treble hooks, and you've got to then bring it all the way in, free the hooks, and then to make the cast out again. It's not very often that these are not fishing every moment of your cast, if that makes sense when you're retrieving it, because if you do feel it snagging up, really hard pulls of the rod tip, it's going to then dart forward, it should shed most of the weed it's got on it, the blade's going again, and you'll feel the blade. So if you feel the vibration, it is fishing.
Right, yeah.
So it's in weedy conditions are brilliant. And the one other trick that you can do with these are more of a warmer weather bait. I find them more effective, but in the winter, something that I've been doing really well on is you're trying to turn this into a Tokyo rig. So you want a really thick piece of fluorocarbon. The great thing with a tiny boomer is that you've got this another attachment point under the chin.
Yeah.
Now you can just put add more weight onto it. So if you want a small bladed jig, but you're fishing in one of the reservoirs and you want to fish close to the bottom, you can add a weight to that.
So you can put a fast attach type of weight on there, which will then pull it down.
Yeah, it'll bomb straight to the bottom, but it will have exactly the same action.
And profile.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're fishing a finesse style chatterbait, but you can fish it in 20 foot of water and it's bombing down extra quick.
So Gunki do these in 4 different sizes. It literally does go tiny all the way up to 21 grams. These are 5 grams. So that's a 5 grams. So it's quite a light.
It is, yeah.
You know,
so you can the bigger ones again. I've every single size that Gunki do. I have caught on, but these, because of the attachment point on the bottom as well, they are so effective, and even in deep water, because you can just add weight. But what I've been doing in the winter is adding a piece of fluorocarbon, not too long, maybe 4 or 5 inches, but you want it thick and you want it stiff, so you effectively got it's a bit like a Tokyo rig.
Yeah.
I'll tie, anyone that's done any match fishing, they will know what a crow's foot is. I'll tie a crow foot in the bottom of that length of fluorocarbon, and I'll have a bullet weight or some kind of sliding weight on that. And the reason is, if we cast it out, the weight is on the bottom.
It's a stiff boom, is that?
Stiff boom with a sliding weight on it. The reason we tie a crow's foot on it is if we get a big fish and then that weight gets stuck behind a rock, it can just pull off. Yeah, so it's fish safe. If some absolute disaster happens and you snap off on a big fish, again, it's not going to be tethered to the bottom because the weight can come off. So it's just adding that little bit of fish safety to your rig as well. But normally we like to go as light as we can get away with. With this, I will go the opposite. I'll go heavy because I want the weight to be on the bottom and I want it to be causing disturbance along the bottom. I want it to be kicking up silt and things like that. And this, I want bottom contact, but I also want to be able to feel the vibration of the blade working. I'll go as slow as I can get away with in the winter with feeling that vibration. So
you're fishing a game totally different with a lure that's not really designed to do that.
No.
You're getting the best out of every single.
If you think about that, you've got some. I've caught pike on this that have been covered in lice and so completely inactive fish. But because this is going to be, depending on how long you tie your boom, it's going to be close to the bottom. You're going to be getting that trail of like silt, whatever you're kicking up off the bottom. You've got the blade is moving, so you've got the vibration. You will get, it will just wake the pike up, and you will. Again, it will work with perch, but I've caught a lot more pike on them than perch in the winter. So yeah, you're in the area where the pike are. You are waking those fish up, and again, you're just adding that little bit more disturbance by picking all the crap up off the bottom. Doing that a little bit,
obviously slower.
As slow as I can get, as slow as I can get away with feeling the vibration of the blade through the rod tip.
Wow.
Again, it's very simple. Once you think about it, it's a very simple way of fishing. All of what we spoke about today, it's all incredibly easy to fish. It's all very easy to rig up. Most of it's very cost effective as well. So even though we might be sounding like we're getting really advanced and really technical, when you sort of like pick it apart, it's very simple. And it's something that we can all do.
It's just trying to. What you're doing is diving into that fish's mind as much as possible, or trying to work out that column of water and trying to get the best out of what you've got without taking 10 other different baits and going, right, I can fish this bait 3 or 4 or 5 times different ways, and taking each one of your products.
Well, it's like the Gunki kiddie. The amount of ways you can burn it across the surface. You can fish it as a soft plastic jerk bait. You can drop shot it. You can put it on a jig head. That's one bait. You can probably do 8 things with it. So again, it's just trying to figure out how we can get the maximum out of all of the baits that we have.
Yeah, no, it's different. But you're known more, Ash, as a perch angler, but I suppose you do catch the odd pike as a by mistake, or these things. But you have used a bait which I can see there, and you have
perch on these,
and you've targeted pike, and you've caught perch on these pike baits. So what have you got?
So this is the drag spin, and again, the first thing I can say is the price of these. I thought these were about 20 odd quid, and they're $12.99, I think. So again, they're really, really cost effective. The great thing about this bait is that whether you are fishing venues like me, which is shallow and weedy, or you want to fish reservoirs, real deep water, lakes, deep rivers, whatever, that one bait does it all. Because again, you've got other attachment points that you can add weight to it, and you're still going to get exactly the same action no matter whether you add weight to it or not.
Right. So this is a sinking bait though. This isn't a floating bait.
It's a slow sinking bait unless you attach weight to it. Then obviously, depending on how much weight you attach to it, to how quickly it's going to fall through the water.
Right. Okay. So and it's quite a heavy bait, isn't it? So this is a. I'm just going to try and undo these loops. So it's quite. Again, it's got bearings in the different size bearings in the actual nose part, the head part, and then it's got 4 bearings down the middle. So let me try and shake this without taking my hands off.
So again, it's more of a knock than a rattle.
Yeah. So and I've just stabbed myself. So they're not moving as much. So they're just trying. They're more of a weighted area. And this bait when it falls, it falls. Like it falls horizontally.
All you get, and it sounds a little bit underwhelming, but it's so effective. When this is falling through the water, it barely has a rock to it.
Right.
At most, it has a rock to it, but the tail, even under its own weight with no weight attached to it, this is sort of up there, just moving about like that, and again you will catch a lot of fish on the pause just as it's sinking under its own weight. It's perfect for me from the venues I fish. They're shallow, they're weedy. Right. So what we would do in shallow weedy venues is attach it on the nose, cast it out. And
so you've got two
attachment points. Yeah. So attach it to the nose on shallow venues, cast it out, and these are as simple as cast out and retrieve. There's nothing complex about fishing these baits. They're not a jerk bait. Right. It is just a spin tail bait. You cast it out, you reel it in. You're getting very little movement out of this, but you're getting the tail at the back, which is loads of flash, and it's been spinning round. And we did some filming for Gunki. We was trying to do a bit for camera, and we had a pike. We released it. Next cast, another pike. So it kept interrupting the filming process because we was trying to actually talk about this bait. Yeah. They're very effective.
The key point for me is that there's 3 swivels here, and they're all 360 swivels. So your trebles are on a 360 swivel as well.
So you're going to lose less fish because there's complete rotation of the treble hooks, but also it's better for the fish as well because they're not going to do much damage to the fish because you've got that full rotation as well. So again, with that fish safety aspect in mind, these are really good for that.
So it's versatile in the sense of you can fish it up to 0.2 of a metre. You can fish it deep as a different attachment point.
You can literally fish them along the surface. If you have your rod tip up slightly higher, retrieve it straight away, it will come back literally on the surface. But again, if you're fishing, let's say you're fishing a 20-foot deep venue, attach it then on the top of the head,
right,
and then put another fast attach weight on the front, depending on how deep or how quickly you want that to fall through the water. So you've got one bait that you can fish 20 foot or the surface. It's such a versatile bait, and again, if you are on a budget and you don't want to go and spend hundreds on baits for all different things, and you want to catch some pike, and like I say, I've had perch on those as well.
How did you catch a perch on this?
We don't know. Still don't know. No, it's ridiculous. It literally tail walked. It was like a peacock bass coming out of the water. It's ridiculous. But for a pike angler, that again, maybe you just want to start out and you don't want to spend loads, or you don't, just generally you want to get you want to get a large amount for a small amount of money. That might probably not put that across very well, but
you're getting a lot of bait. So
a lot of bait for a little money.
What there is, and it's quite hard to see. There is a lot of design that's gone onto into these baits. There's little ribs across the bait. There's a little fin at the back. There's a little tiny fin even the blade is shaped. Has got some shimmers out of it. It's got a little point to it. So it's been engineered over and over again to get it exactly right. So all these little marks and little notches out of the bait makes a difference to the overall performance.
Yeah, you can tell that a lot of care and effort has been put into the design of that bait. And again, I think for the price as well, I keep going back to that, but we can spend a lot of money on pike baits especially. Yeah. I think they're such good value for money, and the fact that we can utilise them in so many different situations is just an absolute bonus. Yeah. I think as well, I picked these 2 colours specifically because that again is neon IU. It's see-through. In clear water again it's very good, but in coloured water, or like I've mentioned several times, clear water in low light, the Fire Tiger, which is an absolute classic pike colour. Really, really good as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, I'm going to steer all this. Ash is going to have to run around the shop again. He's not getting this. This might all end up in my box somewhere along the line. But Ash, that's there's a lot going on in your head, and getting it out. And we've had some long hours and hours of conversations. Yeah. And I hope you've enjoyed that. Please comment below if there's something you'd like to know. There is a lot of information in that head that we would like to get out. But what you've brought there is a lot to the party in a very small section of lures.
Yeah, you can do a lot. This will cover pretty much everything you need to do. Through 16th of June to the 14th of March, you're covered.
There you go. Yeah. What, you need one little bag, one lure. One lure.
For a pike angler, yeah.
So that's it. Thanks very much. Stay tuned for more, and we will see you again soon. Right, Ash, we almost forgot to add something into this new wonder box. Right, and we're going to call this the ultimate lure box. What we're going to do, everybody comes in, yeah, I'll get their best favourite spanking I can't lose without, can't catch without this lure. Yeah, I'm going to put it in this box. We're going to call it the ultimate, yeah, and then this one that we're getting off, everybody, all the bits we're going to get off, we will give this away once it's pretty much full. Yeah, we'll do a little price for this, but we will make these available on the website. But you're going to start it off with the one lure that you love.
It's got to be the Gunki Boomer. I think, even though there's other lures that I catch more on, there isn't a bait that I've used in recent years that's accounted for more £3 plus perch than the Boomer, especially through summer, early autumn. More specifically, the one in IU.
Yeah.
Works in coloured water, clear water, and everything in between. You know, it's an easy win, that one for me.
Right, get it in there. First in there. Let's get this box open. Chuck it in. One in. Happy days. Stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video, and work out. Well, we won't be able to wait until we've got the next one in. We don't know what we've got in next, but we'll work it out. But thanks, Ash, for that. Thanks
no worries, mate.